The Fix is in. The Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement. GVArtwork.com.
Sports Fix listeners, don't wait all day or all week to get in on the fun. The party doesn't stop when we go off the air all week long. The Sports Fix social media sites are your one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports. Jump over to Facebook.com/TheSportsFix, Facebook.com/TheSportsFix, and become a fan today because we love fans and they create some of the best sports talk in town, Daddy. You'll enjoy talking to your fellow Cleveland sports fans on the Sports Fix fan page. And if Twitter's your thing, well, you know how we do it. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. It's that simple. Twitter.com/TheSportsFixCLE, baby. Chat live with the crew during all your favorite Cleveland sports events, tickets and contests and trivia and so much more. Get with us today, The Sports Fix on social media, Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Join the Sports Fix on Facebook and Twitter today.
Hey Cleveland, this is Anderson Varejão of the Cleveland Cavaliers. You are listening to the Sports Fix.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Welcome in, everybody. We are live. Sorry about the slight delay starting. It was like a minute or something. I lost track of what time it was. Just minutes before we went on the air. I'm sure some of you that are listening live know where I'm going here. Saw the stories about the airplane shot down near the Ukraine-Russian border. 300 people on it. I don't know if there's Americans on it. I think it was going from Amsterdam to Malaysia, and it's the same Malaysia Airlines, the same airlines that had the deal with the missing airplane that still don't know where it's at. But wow, man. You wonder if this could be, I don't have all the details. I don't know who shot what down. No, it was shot down. I see the video here of a burning plane on the ground. But you wonder, did somebody just start another, I don't want to go off the apocalyptic edges and say a world war. But, man, that's something that there's some answers that need to be answered to there. I'm just kind of distracted a little bit watching this in the background. Put that to the side here. I'm sure more will come out about that throughout the day. But welcome into the Sports Fix. J-Rocc with you guys here another day, Thursday. Busy day going on today. We've got Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com joining us. Going to talk about a couple of different things with him, too. He's got some ideas. He told me, he said, hey, man, I put together an article, some different ways that baseball can promote itself better. I said, hey, I'm definitely cool with talking about that. He's got some look-aheads for the second half. His prediction, not gloom and doom, but like I said yesterday, not also sunshine and parades either. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. He's with us. Actually, he'll be with us just about 10-15 minutes from now. A couple of segments with Mike. John McMullen from the Sports Network. He's here at 1 o'clock in the second hour of the show. We'll talk to him about the latest going around in the NFL. The Ravens with their 5th arrest of the offseason here. Greg Hardy and his situation. I'll get into it with John later, but the Redskins, this thing is just going to keep going. It's the gift that keeps on giving in sports talk, the naming thing. CBS now has given the announcers, they get to decide if they are offended and choose not to use the name Redskins during the broadcast. Yes, the announcers, CBS is going to allow them to decide whether they leave out the word Redskins, the Washington Club or Washington or whatever, but they can now use their own judgment because they don't want to force announcers that are offended. But I know, I'm just saying, they don't want to force announcers that are offended by the word Redskins to use the term if they don't want to. So they're going to allow their talent to decide if they want to, and if they don't want to use the name Redskins when they're talking about the Washington Redskins. We'll talk about all of that with John McMullen here in a little bit, so much more. And of course, we want to talk to you. So let's kick it off, open up the phone lines. Welcome in, everybody, to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers with you here. Another jam-packed, loaded edition of the Sports Fix live on the sportsfix.net, on TuneIn and Spreaker and Mixler and their digital radio applications worldwide, 24/7 on digital delay on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, all the podcast platforms, and so much more. Welcome into the show, you guys, and I want you to be a part of it like we do this every day. 216-539-7535. There's going to be a lot of open phone line time today, so I behoove you to take advantage of it while you can. 216-539-7535, the number to call, or you can hit us up on social media, Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email me, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. Always 24/7 to stay in touch with the show. Here we are, by the way. We are at day 3 of the 3 days of the year where there were no, actually, no, because golf at least hits today, the significant sporting events all dark. As we saw last night, by the way, with the ESPYs. And I'm going to start off right off the top by telling you that's not my thing. But then again, I'm not into none of the award shows. I don't really get into too much of that. I don't watch all of those. I know there's a lot of them, and some people really dig them. They do high ratings. I get it. The ESPYs, the only thing I like about the thing is that it's, for a good cause. And the Jimmy V Foundation and all the money and the attention that it brings to that, I'm with that. So if people want to have a good time with that, that's fine. But Drake, all I'm going to say is that's y'all's neighbor now, Cleveland. Somebody told me, unless I was misinformed on this, but I do believe that he has locked down an apartment down by the river. I'm telling you, he got a downtown loft. Your man Drake is now one of us. I guess I got to put myself in there too because I'm Cleveland too. But yeah, there you go. That's y'all's boy, Cleveland, now hanging out with his boys. It continues to get better and better here in Cleveland. But outside of that, I will say that I want to take the funniness out of my voice for a second, because the one and only thing that I did take away from the ESPYs that was incredibly awesome, and I mean, you could put all the adjectives on it you want, Stuart Scott, and the fact, not only his speech was just, at first I didn't like Stuart Scott when he first started, because, the booyah and all this stuff, I thought he was trying too hard. But when some of that went away, like the longer that he was there, and some of that, he still had it, but it wasn't so much a gimmick anymore. You started to see that it was less forced. It was more, he found himself, and he's such an eloquent speaker. He is such I'm telling you, he's a television personality. He's very good at what he does. And I gave him, like I said, a lot of guff early on. I was not a Stuart Scott fan. I became one through the work that he put in. Really, I mean, he's much different from when he started, as everybody is. I am too, I mean, I say that all the time, man. I mean, we all grow and evolve and emerge into what we were eventually meant to be. Some get there faster, some take longer, but Stuart Scott, one of the best. You can see all the respect that his colleagues and everybody has for him, but behind the scenes, I mean, I don't even know how many of you guys know how he almost didn't make it. I mean, to this thing is what I mean, to the ESPY Awards. I mean, he had 4 surgeries in the past 10 days. I mean, really, it took a lot to get him there, and I'm definitely not trying to look at the downside of things too, but I've got to be honest, and maybe I'm alone in this. I mean, I hope that he continues his fight. I hope 20 years from now he's still fighting. But something about last night, he's done a lot of, 7 years he's been fighting cancer, and he's beat it. He's temporarily overcome and then setback and back and forth, which is how it goes. A lot of us that have dealt with it firsthand know that. But you see him last night, I don't know. I got the Jimmy V feeling last night. It felt different. I don't know. I mean, and some of the words, when you read between the lines and some of the things that he said, and then to have his daughter at the end, it just was, seriously, you got to be a pretty cold cat not to have that one hit you in the old ticker for sure. And my hat's off to him. Just in general, in his career, what he's done, what he's become, the respect of his peers, the respect of the athletes, of everybody that's come in contact with him. Because more than just a sports guy, more than just a funny ESPN Sports Center guy, more than any of that, man, he's a great person, and you can see it. Even if you don't know him firsthand, you can see it in the way, you can always judge people in the way other people look at them, especially, when you've got people who you trust, who tell you things. I mean, and you can see it all around, the way people look towards it. But what a moment there, and I just wanted to take a minute to mention that. I think the whole rest of the ridiculousness, you could take it, wrap it up in a ball, toss it to the side for all I care. I didn't pay attention to any of it. It was only when that was pointed out to me that, boom, I made sure that I took a look at that, and I was definitely glad that I did, most definitely glad that I did. Stuart Scott from ESPN, and hats off to him, and hopefully, like I said, he keeps fighting that thing for the next 20 years, man. He's, anyways, but so I want to move on with that there, but my hat's off to him, and if you guys get into the ESPYs, hey, don't let me rain on your parade. Like I said, it's just not my deal. I'm not into those types of things, especially I looked at some of the highlights this morning and I said, yes, decision well made last night when it came to not watching that. Speaking of decisions, well, not really a big one here, but a free agent decision yesterday before I get to the first break, something we talked about on yesterday's show. The Cleveland Heat continue to assemble. It's like newsroom assemble. Heat bench assemble in Cleveland. And Ron Burgundy James has assembled the Heat bench as another piece. But I will say, James Jones, he played limited, very, very limited last year. But with his percentage, I think it's a small sample size. I think he played less than 20 regular season games, and then he played like 15 of the playoff games. But with the two guys that we just signed, and Mike Miller and James Jones, you've just signed two, percentage-wise, two of the top 5 NBA three-point shooters from last season. Both of them career over about 40, 41%, I think, for each one of them in their career. But two of the top 5. I mean, you've definitely added a pair of shooters there that LeBron's comfortable with, that he likes to have. And I saw some people. I think that they. I don't know. I don't know the way people look at things. First off, when you look at the Cavaliers and the type of squad they're putting together, you have to change. You can't compare what they would have done pre-LeBron re-signing with the Cavs or not, because it changes a bit of the equation as far as the way they're going to go about, the certain pieces that they're going to look for, all of that kind of stuff when they put together this team. So you do have to alter things. But I saw some people jumping off the deep end. Well, LeBron is just going to bring all of his friends in and he's telling management what to do. I don't believe that in one bit here, because I can tell you for a fact that first off, we're talking about Griffin and Blatt. These cats love shoot. They can't have enough shooters on the Cavaliers to satisfy this front office. They want to score 175 points a game. And that was before LeBron James became a reality as far as putting their roster together. So I don't agree at all. And plus, there's a reason that they went to Miami when LeBron was there. It wasn't just to play with LeBron. Yes, that's an aspect of it, but it was because when you have a guy who does the things that LeBron does, you need to have shooters. You have to have guys, because there's so much drive and kick and everybody collapses. That's how you beat teams. I mean, the Heat figured that out. So you have to look at it from that perspective with that. And here's a couple of guys that he's comfortable with here, added to it. And I've got to tell you, looking at the Cavaliers roster as it's currently constructed, forget about any potential pie-in-the-sky trades or any of that. Just looking at the roster as it's constructed, I do believe they need, although I'm curious to see what kind of gas Haywood's got in the tank as far as a backup center coming off the bench. But with the exception of maybe addressing that position, I'm telling you, I kind of like the makeup of this Cavaliers team, especially when I look at the second team that would be coming off. I think Delly, assuming, and I think he will, because the style of game that he plays that'll impress anybody, like any coaching staff. It's not like, I don't think Delly's game impresses one coaching staff and not another. I think the problem with him is getting a coaching staff to give you the shot to look at you, which he's got because the door's open for him here. And he's going to kick it down. I see him he could be that backup point guard that makes the squad. I think he will. I think it's his job to lose. I'll say that. I think it's definitely his job to lose. But look at that. You got Delly. You got Dion Waiters coming off the bench there. You got Anthony Bennett coming off the bench. I mean, you're going to have Mike Miller and James Jones. I mean, you've got some different pieces, some depth coming off the bench, which instantly changes the course of this team as well for this season. Again, I don't know what the high end of this is, but I was looking yesterday. I saw, was it Fox Sports, ESPN, one of the channels? I don't know. I caught one of those studio shows, and they were putting up they were going through the Eastern Conference, and man, it's the Wild West. It really is. The next couple of, you look at a couple of moves and see how much they change. We talked about it shaking it up, but when you saw it all laid out together, you look at Washington, the moves they're making to add some vets, fill some holes around the young core that they've got there. They made some big strides last year. Washington's a team to watch out for. But Chicago, with or without Derrick Rose, they continue to build onto that. That's going to be a team right there, man. And Miami, I told everybody, they're not going to drop completely off the face of the planet. They're going to fall to the middle of the pack, but they're not. They're still going to be in that, I think, 4th, 5th, 6th playoff seed area somewhere. I'd probably say closer to 4th or 5th. And of course, more moves can be made to change the landscape of this stuff. But just look around the whole East. It's up for grabs. I mean, Indiana lost Lance Stevenson. Stevenson goes to Charlotte. I mean, just the Eastern Conference is wide open, which is great, not just for Cavaliers fans, but for if you're into basketball, because that's not always the case. Not always the case in basketball. You know, sometimes it's the haves and have-nots, but it's definitely opened up the East. I'd like to see. I'm just going to stick with it. I know, listen, if you can steal Kevin Love for a song and a dance from Minnesota, then I'm all for it. But they're playing hardball, and I say let them play hardball. Throw these young guns out there with the vets that you got here to kind of sprinkle and pepper it in, and let LeBron and let Kyrie Irving and let these young guys learn each other. Let them figure each other out together. Let's see. I mean, listen, Andrew Wiggins might be limited to playing great defense and jumping up and catching alley-oops and dunking the ball this season. Figure out how to use that to your advantage, because he's got crazy athleticism as he continues to grow. I see the potential with the defense on the wings, with a lot of fast break opportunities for guys like Wiggins to have a good base first season, even while he's fixing and learning and grooming and all of those things that come with being such a young kid first year in the NBA. Throw in Bennett, who we've talked about. I'm telling you, man, I'd like to see that. I think so. And I think the East is in a position where even if you do that, you can still compete and have as good of a chance to come out of the East as anybody else. Hey, guys, we've got to get it. We got to hit the break. When we come back, let's fire this thing up with Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. He's going to call and join us. He's on the road back. He went to the Eastern League All-Star game last night? Yep, we're going to talk to him about that. Mike Brandenberry with the All-Star game. We'll talk Eric Jeter. He's got some ideas to pump up the popularity of Major League Baseball. We'll talk Tribe in the second half and so much more. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com coming up next here on The Sports Fix. You can't get on the phones? Facebook us. Tweet with us. Email us. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Where do you see the Tribe in the second half? Mike Brandenberry is going to let you know where he sees them coming up on the other side of the break, next on The Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix, the show that asks the question,
what you talking about, Will? What you talking about, Will? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Will? What you talking about? What you talking about, Will? What you talking about? What you talking about, Will?
We'll be right back.
Before we go to the break, guys, I want to talk to you just a second about our friends at GV Art and Design. Baseball's here once again. Cleveland, of course, excited, and GV Artwork teaming up with the Indians, and they're both going to knock it out of the park this season. And listen to some of the new designs they've got for Cleveland baseball fans everywhere. They've dug out an old classic, and they're bringing the heat with the new Wild Thing, Give 'em the Heater Ricky design. GV Artwork is teaming up with Cleveland fan favorite Michael Brantley and created a custom Dr. Smooth t-shirt. Plus, don't forget, they've got the Cleveland That I glove collection, new tribal and Cleveland That I love designs for women, and so much more. You can get GV Artwork designs on the website, gvartwork.com. And don't forget to use the sales code FIX10. That's FIX10, and you'll save 10% on your purchase. Or you can check out their new store in Lakewood on Detroit Avenue. Check them out in the Indians team shops and so much more. Cleveland That we all love, GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement.
Hey, Sports Fix fans, I'm Fred McLeod, TV voice for the Cavaliers. When I'm not busy taking elbows from my buddy Austin Carr, I'm tuning in to see what the guys are saying.
Come on, Cavs!
The engines are cranking and purring, and that can only mean one thing. Bike nights are back at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. Rev up your hogs and head on down to Harry Buffalo North Olmsted every Monday night. Enjoy $3 drinks and beers, $5 pizzas, and crazy wing specials for all bikers, all on their open patio. Hot bikes, good friends, and great times are waiting for you. 4824 Great Northern Boulevard, right outside Great Northern Mall. Monday bike nights at Harry Buffalo, the proud sponsor of the Sports Fix. Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
At the corner of Carnegie and Ontario, it's basketball time at the Q.
Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history?
He won it! Milo hit a three-pointer on the side.
In-depth personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book.
Joe Day, Fred McLeod, Hector Marinero.
Discussing the most intimate and sometimes controversial details of the largest moments in our town's sports history.
The Indians have won the divisional title.
A perfect game for Lynn Barker.
What a win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Their first time in a playoff.
It's the first book written from the players' point of view, with the media that covered it and the fans that watched. Finally, the true stories are told, from a miracle in Richfield to the NBA Finals.
The Detroit Pistons have been booby-trapped.
From a perfect game to a World Series one pitch from victory. From a Wildcat High School dynasty to the golden days of the Browns, Barons, and Crunch, this book will change the way the entire sports nation looks at Cleveland.
Cleveland, you will have an October to remember.
Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today. Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck, home of the low price tire guarantee. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live here on the sportsfix.net and across the Sports Fix Radio Network. There we go. I'm going to shorten it up to that one for now. J-Rocc back with you here. Show rolling on. Getting ready to have some fun with my man Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com on the phones, which means you can't call, but you can hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE, all one word. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. J-Rocc back with you. Mike Brandenberry on the phones. We're going to talk some Tribe here in a little bit, but a few other things we want to get into here. Can't wait to do it, so let's do it now. Going to the phones, Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Mike, how you doing?
Jerry, I'm doing good. I know we're going to get into all kinds of things, but I've been in the car alone for 8 hours in the last 2 days. I have all kinds of deep thoughts to share and talk about.
And this ain't Jack Handy. This is Mike Brandenberry here. So he's got some deep baseball thoughts. Let's start there. You're on the road traveling. I told people you headed to Pennsylvania. Was it the Eastern League All-Star Game? Is that where you went?
Yeah, I went to Altoona, Pennsylvania last night, and
home of the Curve.
Covered. Yep, the home of the Altoona Curve in the Eastern League. Opponent of the Akron Rubber Ducks, and covered the Eastern League All-Star game. The Rubber Ducks had 3 participants: Francisco Lindor, Sean Armstrong, and Joe Colon. Lindor and Armstrong both got into the game. Colon did not. He pitched on Monday, so he was kind of an emergency guy, only to be used if the game went long or something. So a good time. Got a lot of opportunity to talk with Francisco, which is always a good time, and a good game too. I saw something you don't get to see every day. I saw a grand slam home run hit a roller coaster, Jerry.
There you go. All right, man. I mean, you had all the good things together, not just a home run, but a grand slam that hits the roller coaster.
Yes. The Curve have a small amusement park out beyond the right field fence, and the big roller coaster at this amusement park, I guess, is over 100 years old from what I heard. It's a wood roller coaster. I would say it was probably comparable to something like the Blue Streak at Cedar Point. And Stephen Moya, who, if you watch the Futures game on Sunday, is a prospect of the Detroit Tigers, probably, unfortunately, a very big, tall, left-handed hitting outfielder. He got on top of a fastball that missed, and he crushed it. I would say he crushed it down the right field line, a solid 400 feet. And from people I've talked to, there are not very many balls that hit that roller coaster, and he definitely he got it good.
Wow, hits the roller coaster. There you go, man. All the things that you see, I talk about all the time, man. The world of minor league baseball, man. You see some of the coolest things that you just don't see in any other sport and any other venue. You got to love that, man. And you said you got a chance to talk to Lindor a little bit. Talk to me about that.
I did. I've talked to Francisco several times. I like to pretend that we're on first-name basis with each other when I refer to him as Francisco. But, Jerry, every time I ever talk to anyone about Francisco Lindor, I always tell them, people will always ask me, is he as good as the hype? And I always say I think it's unfair to overhype anyone. But if there's anyone to overhype, I think it's him, because I think he's as good as the hype, if not better, and for so many reasons. And that, in my mind, was really all solidified yesterday, even more so. I talked to him for probably 10, 12 minutes, and we talked about a number of things. But, Lindor is as hard a working a ball player as you will find, especially at as young age as he is. He's still only 20 years old. We talked a little bit about how grounded he is and where he gets that from, and kind of his upbringing and how his parents have instilled that in him. And Dave Wallace, who has really been his manager for almost his entire Indians career, and some of the coaches that have really been with him since he signed in 2011, and how they've impacted him. And Francisco is a very grounded and humble person, and he's never going to make any kind of statement like that he feels that he's getting close to the big leagues. But it's obvious. He doesn't have to say it. It's obvious in his play. It's obvious in the way he conducts himself and his professionalism and his demeanor. He is becoming a big league ball player before your very eyes.
And that's really music to a lot of Indians fans' ears there. And a lot of people hoping that they see Lindor sooner rather than later. We'll talk about that when we get to talking about the second half for the Indians. But, it is fun to look at him, look at his progress so far, and project ahead to what he may be, what he could turn out to be. And, obviously you don't place any kind of expectations on a guy that young, though, but you sit here and look at, speaking of a shortstop at the beginning of his major league journey, flip back and do the 360 this week. You know, one thing I wanted to get into with you before we talk Tribe, the All-Star game, the break here this week, a breath, not really the halfway point, more like almost the 2/3 point of the season, but that's okay. And Derek Jeter, very classy, a lot of different things with him honoring others honoring him here this weekend. The epitome of truly, I mean, really, a lot of people, I said it yesterday, and in Cleveland it seems a lot of them do too. They give him guff for this or that, or they don't, I don't know, maybe they don't dig the amount of respect some people give him. I do. I think Derek Jeter is the epitome of a class act and a baseball player.
Yeah, I agree. And I was watching some piece, I think it was on MLB Network. Now that LeBron has signed, I'm probably done with ESPN for at least the rest of this year. I really have no point for them. So I assume I was back on MLB Network. So I think it was a piece that they had put together on Jeter. And there was a quote from Joe Girardi. And he said, and I thought when he said it, I thought it made so much sense. But he said, I think, you know, it's kind of turned out this way in the last 2 years with both Jeter and Mariano Rivera. But he said, I think every year the All-Star game should honor, you know, a player in the game for what they've done in their career. And I think the more I thought of that, it wasn't anything that was really a major part of the piece, but it just caught my ear, and I started to think about it, and I was like, you know, that in itself, it would really be a high and deserving honor that I mean, almost kind of like a lifetime achievement award. I mean, and that's really kind of, you know, what the weekend became for Derek Jeter and was for last year for Rivera. But I mean, how cool would that be if MLB would really kind of embrace that? And, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a player retiring, and who better, I mean, those two guys to kind of start that kind of trend. And I always say when it comes to Jeter and Rivera too, you know, you either love the Yankees or you hate the Yankees. And I think the commercial that Nike made,
oh yeah,
I mean, was perfect for him, because it doesn't matter if you love the Yankees or hate the Yankees, you got to respect that guy. And I mean, you got to respect those two guys. I mean, two guys who, in an era full of asterisks and mistakes and press conferences full of excuses, have come out at the end of their career as clean and unblemished as anyone possibly could ever imagine to be.
Absolutely. 100% agree with everything you just said there. And, you know, just even thinking about Jeter's career, you think about the fact that he, it's like one of those literal things that happened when you watch it. You think back, he moved aside so that the guy could come in who turned out to be one of the, you know, lightning rods of the whole exact opposite of what Derek Jeter's all about. And it's just that alone, that little situation during his time in New York, moving for A-Rod and all of that, just kind of sums up Jeter to me, just the way he went about his business.
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because on my 8 hours of travels as I went from one end of Pittsburgh to the other, it was kind of nice to change a channel off of the normal sports talk radio stations and see what someone else was talking about. And that's exactly what they were talking about. How ironic that it was the Yankees that went out and got a guy like A-Rod, who they now can't get far enough away from. And the classiest guy of all time stood next to him for, 5, 6, 7 years.
I'm telling you, man, and switched his position for him. Cleveland's going ballistic right now because Deion Waiters tweets out a one-word answer that he doesn't want to come off the bench, and here you got just that's why, for the people that don't get it, things like that are why he is respected. It's not just for what he did on the field. It's not just for his class level. It's not just for his girlfriend lineup either. We talked about that yesterday. You can't respect Derek Jeter for everything else and not throw that one in there too. I will throw his 1 through 9 lineup card out there against anybody, I think, in world history, man.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want to go down this road, but for all the people that make excuses for Johnny Manziel and say that you can't, that that we're in a different world with cell phones and Twitter and everything else. I'm kind of inclined to believe that Derek Jeter, in a lot of ways, has lived the life of Johnny Manziel, yet has found a way to keep it pretty quiet and pretty classy. So, if I was Derek Jeter, if I was Johnny Manziel, I would be having my people contact Derek Jeter and ask for that playbook. Because
he's in New York, too. This is Cleveland, and before that, Texas, and we're talking New York, and, it's not like the paparazzi aren't following the combination of Derek Jeter and Jessica Alba all over the place, you know what I mean? And any other girl, you could just sub in any of the myriad of supermodels and actresses and incredibly hot women that he has secretly, quietly dated. Some people, when you run down the list, they go, man, I didn't even realize he was with that one and that one. That's exactly the point that you just made. I'm willing to bet that the scrutiny was a little higher, the attention a little higher in New York, and people even they'll say, hey, man, Johnny's a young guy. He's got all these hot girls around him all the time. What would you do? And then there you go. Well, I don't know, man, but Derek Jeter definitely handled it a different way, and it's a great point to bring up here, looking at what we've got in Cleveland. And it's not saying the kid won't get better, but it's a brilliant point to say there's some people that have had it better and brighter and louder than you and been much quieter about it in the process.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, if I was Johnny Manziel, I would be trying to contact Derek Jeter and ask him for his secrets.
And I mentioned that the other day about even having LeBron here with him. But say what you want, Dan Wismar brought it up. He's done things that have made people mad at him for emotional issues, but I don't think ever do you hear really the police blotter talk, the secret investigations, anything attaching his name. He's done a very good job of living a clean life as far as legal issues and anything like that goes. So, that's commendable. Maybe there's some examples for him, but pretty funny that you bring that up. The All-Star game. What are your thoughts? I saw actually it was weird because I saw somebody was it ESPN, one of the sports numbers sites that I was looking at was hyping that the ratings were up, but it was just like a slight percentage point. I mean, it's a group of about 6 or 7 million people that has settled down into at least the last 5 years or so that watch the All-Star game, man. What are your thoughts on the baseball All-Star game? We were comparing it yesterday to some of the others and how of all the All-Star games, baseball, theirs is probably the most meaningful, even though it's got that stupid World Series attachment to it. But do you agree with that, of the Pro Bowl, of the basketball, of baseball, that baseball's All-Star game is probably the best of the group, even though all of them are just exhibitions?
Yeah, I agree. I think the home field advantage thing is, I would call it silly because most of the other words I would use to describe it you probably wouldn't want me to use, but I just think that that was a short-sighted move to try to fix a wrong in having a tie game. And honestly, it's funny because as I was driving yesterday, one of the things they were talking about was if Wainwright piped one to Jeter and
right.
Was it wrong? And I was thinking, should he be doing this in a game that counts? And I was thinking, first of all, the idea that it counts is foolish. The only person that thinks that it counts is Bud Selig. So, it shouldn't count. It is an exhibition. I think I agree with you. I think it's the best exhibition of the All-Star games. And, the world that we live in now, the novelty that it used to be 30 years ago and, God forbid, 50 and 60 years ago, when every game wasn't on TV and you didn't get to see, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron or even, Tony Gwynn and Ryan Sandberg and Wade Boggs, when you didn't get to see those guys every day, that novelty is long gone. And I don't think you're ever getting it back. But I think there's ways to make this game and this week better. I think it's the best game because guys go out there and when they're on the field, they give it their best shot. it's not like the NFL game or the NBA game where there's no defense involved, and it's kind of a mockery of the game that they play the rest of the time. I mean, Clayton Kershaw's not going out there just, throwing 78 miles an hour to guys. So, I mean, I like that. And the whole Wainwright thing, I mean, my thought was, I think his only mistake was alluding to the fact or trying to tip his hand that he ever did it. I mean, I think these things have happened before. A lot of people believe that, Chan-Ho Park's pitch to Cal Ripken in 01 was piped for him to drive one. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, and maybe somebody can check this out, but I believe that Mickey Mantle's last at bat as a big leaguer is a home run. And I believe that they piped him that one, and that was a regular season game. I mean, the way I was thinking about it this morning, if you're a guy that, I mean, look at the three guys that we just used as examples that somebody piped one to, Derek Jeter, Cal Ripken, and Mickey Mantle. If you're in that ilk that you're so respected by your peers that they want you to go out on a high note, I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you hear stories of a lot of that. I mean, think about Babe Ruth down at the end, I think you're right about Mickey Mantle there. I see Ted Williams. Bruce mentioned him in the chat room as somebody else there, too. But my thought was, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this. My other thought on it was Derek Jeter is not exactly one step away from the glue factory as far as on the field skills. Still, he's not on the total back, 18th hole. He may be on the back 9, but I'm like, does he really need that? Like, I don't know. I mean, I get the respect level of it, but some guys, when they're really, when they're at the end, when the skills have truly diminished that much, yeah. But I don't know. Jeter can still play some ball, man. I don't know that I don't know that insinuating that you did isn't a little bit, I don't know, a little bit premature, disrespect a little bit in a way that was meant to be respectful. I'm trying to say that so it makes sense. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think if Derek Jeter decided that he wanted to play 2015, I mean, I think the Yankees would be fine with him coming back.
Right.
I mean, he's certainly got some gas left in the tank.
So you don't have to give him one, That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, he's leaving a year or two too early and not a year or two too late. And I think too, as far as piping him one, whether they did or didn't, I don't really care. But I think this is a week for sure where MLB should be trying to highlight their players and their game, and they're the only game really going on right now. I definitely don't want to turn the All-Star game on for Derek Jeter's last All-Star game and watch him go 0 for 3 with 2 groundouts to shortstop. So,
true.
I mean, whether they grooved him one or not, the guy got 2 hits. I mean, he got a nice send-off. He got a great ovation. I mean, I think that's how it should be. So, I mean,
and the Indians got home
every
field.
bit of it.
And the Indians got home field in the World Series thanks to it. So I'll take that, man, And that was the one place where me and Dan ended it yesterday was it's definitely sports and entertainment, which it has to. People that are pure sports people don't get that in 2014. Sports has to be sports and entertainment. But once you cross that line into entertainment, like you said, nobody wants to see Jeter go 0 for 3. You can't have a tangible asset attached to the result of that game. That's the only mistake. Either it counts and we're playing for real, or let's give everybody happy memories, but then you cannot attach the home field to the World Series to the damn thing. So, but there, you know what? You're talking about we're talking about popularity, and, I was going to get into this later. This is an article that I was going to talk about later. I've got the ratings on the 50 most watched sporting events so far of this year, and all the ratings, and I'll tell you, it ties perfectly right into this. There's horse races, there's Olympic action, there's World Cup soccer, there's college basketball, college football, NBA, everything is in here. Obviously, the NFL dominates this thing. Even the NFL draft is on this top 50 list. There is not one Major League Baseball event in the top 50 rated events of 2014.
Unfortunately, I'm not surprised.
No, me neither.
I mean, everything that you were naming on that list, I'm thinking, yeah, I watched it. Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, I watched it. And most of the time, for me, most of those things, were appointment TV. We kind of had some tongue-in-cheek jokes about soccer and stuff, but a couple weeks ago. But I'm a sucker, and I think a lot of people are, for international competitions. And I am not a hockey fan at all. And it's not that I don't like the game. I mean, honestly, the biggest thing for me is I've never been around it. We haven't had, an NHL team in this town growing up. My family wasn't really into it. I really just haven't had a ton of exposure to it ever. So I'm not a hockey guy at all. But I'll tell you what, every 4 years when the Olympics come around, I mean, I'm taped to that stuff. And I think I'm a guy, I wish that baseball could put together about what it has, because I think that stuff is awesome. So when I hear those things, and, I think a novelty and things that are appointment TV are what people like. And that's why people still watch a horse race. Horse racing will never be what it was 75 years ago. We have a horse several times that make a run at the Triple Crown. People are interested in that. And I don't watch the 2 hours of coverage leading up to it, but I hustle into the room as soon as they say they're loading them into the gate. I'll tell you that. and I think the sad thing is, baseball doesn't have that at this point. And to kind of go with the story that I wrote this week, I think they need to do a better job of trying to create that. And this week is a perfect avenue to try and do some of that, because the other sports are all pretty quiet right now. And this really is a week where Major League Baseball can kind of show themselves off, and I wish they did a better job of it.
And that's what I wanted to talk about as we head into this break. We'll talk Indians on the other side of it, but give me a few of those ideas. You said you penned an article talking about ways that they can increase the popularity. Give me just a few of those ideas you've got, and then maybe we can talk more, expand on it even more next week. But give me kind of a synopsis of some of the ideas you have.
Yeah, so I wrote a column, and it's on our site, DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com, on Monday. So I think it's still on the front page, but would be a little closer to the bottom at this point. But kind of talking about that and trying to bring the game to a little more popularity. This week is wide open, and really the idea that I pitched is to use today, this Thursday. The All-Star break used to only be 3 days, and it's kind of expanded out to 4 now, and nobody plays until Friday. Why not use this day to kind of keep that momentum of the All-Star break and the week? Why not try to make this a baseball week instead of just a baseball day? And my idea was really to try and have one game tonight on this Thursday, match up two teams, and kind of try to steal the NHL's model of, maybe the outdoor game that they use on New Year's Day for the Winter Classic, but play it in a unique venue. And, we like things that are different. We like things that are unique. And, the idea, I pitched several ideas, but I think the one that I like the most that would have, I think, been perfect for this year is play a game at the Field of Dreams. There's 25 years since that movie. I mean, play the Cubs and Cardinals tonight at the Field of Dreams. It's a small venue. You're only going to probably get, 6, 7, 8,000. And that was one of the things that I tied in is this is a once-a-year thing. It's only two teams. It's in a unique location. And so Major League Baseball gets things out of it that they like, being the center of attention and money, because you're going to sell those tickets for a lot. I mean, if you're a Cubs fan, you might have one shot to see your team play at the Field of Dreams. How much are you willing to pay for that? I'm guessing no matter how few thousand they can jam into that cornfield, that's a pricey ticket, that was my idea. But other ones I had is, try to tie it into the Hall of Fame. There's a field at Cooperstown. Why don't we tie into our history of this game more? Why aren't the Braves and the White Sox playing a game at Cooperstown? They could be playing tonight with Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine and Frank Thomas on hand, and really kind of start to kick off their Hall of Fame induction that comes up in a couple weeks. Or why not have the induction, this week too, as part of All-Star Weekend? I mean, why can't we do that in Cooperstown today? You know what? And really try to make this a week-long celebration of the game. I had some other ones. I said, really go outside the box. There's 23 hours of sunlight in a day in Alaska right now. Play a game in Alaska or play a game, in a non-traditional baseball site. We can get millions of people every 4 years onto the Mall of America for a presidential inauguration. We can't figure out how to put a baseball field there for a day.
Man, let me jump in there because I'm digging that. I am with. But first off, the Field of Dreams idea, I'm really digging on that right now, thinking about it, because really the outdoor, the classic, the hockey with the snow, I think it's just such an awesome environment, and it really gets a lot of people every year that don't really care to watch hockey or don't have a rooting preference, or it's the event. It's that thing that ESPN's been showing these cool clips of and whatever. And then, of course, all of the sports the actual hockey fans are into it too. You get that big deal that's hard to reach outside of your championship venue. And so I dig that. And I could see the Field of Dreams, especially if you did it up at night. And I mean, hey, you know what? They can do 3D hologram Michael Jackson and Tupac. We can get some 3D ghosts walking through this thing. Some hologram ghosts that are just kind of randomly passing through the field during the game. You could do it up. But I do, taking the joke out of it, I think that could be awesome. That could be a high-priced ticket like you referenced. But I really dig the last thing that you said. I think that should be a no-brainer. The Baseball Hall of Fame inductions don't get anywhere near the attention that the football, even though it should. Football's got that thing figured out, like they do with a lot of things. I mean, they've won the publicity battle in all forms, including their Hall of Fame. But I love that idea of, I kind of like, you make a whole week out of it. You've got these 4 or 5 days blocked off, so you kind of have the futures game kicks things off, and that's your stars of tomorrow. And then the All-Star game, that's your stars of today. And then the last event, and it builds to the biggest. Instead of the All-Star game being the centerpiece, the All-Star game is that middle leg, and then the final day is that Hall of Fame induction, because then you've got the 2 days. So then you could have everybody, all the All-Stars can be there. All of these players that maybe don't ever get to see an induction ceremony up close because they're playing or whatever it may be, they're all there. And it's the final ending of a big baseball, like you said, mid-season celebration of baseballs, past, present, and future. I think that's a hell of an idea, man.
Well, let's run with it. Let's call the commissioner. And
let's do it.
I'm available to be hired for consultation. I'm willing to negotiate a contract with MLB, and I think compared to most employees, I'm probably willing to negotiate a contract at a very reasonable wage.
I'm telling you, let's get the commish on the bat phone here. Guys, Mike Brandenberry, J-Rocc, the Sports Fix. Let's take a break. When we come back, we talked about some ways to pump up baseball. Now let's talk about how do the Indians pump up the results in the second half. I know that I've already set the stage. You're kind of coming in wearing the black hat here because I already told people that you may not like Mike Brandenberry as much, but he's honest and he's going to tell you what he sees. It's okay for the Indians. Let's talk Tribe in the second half and what could and what will happen with Mike Brandenberry from didthetribewin.com after the news, coming up next here on the Sports Fix.
We here at the Sports Fix want to make all of your dreams come true.
What about my dream?
Edith, I told you I can't build your candy house. It will fall down. The sun will melt the candy. It won't work.
It will if it never rains.
Oh, maybe not all of them. Get your fix on the Sports Fix.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. Of course, you know during Brown season, we're there each and every week. What a fun time it was last year. But not just that, so many more reasons for you to check out the Harry Buffalo today. The UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events. Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
This is head coach Gary Waters at Cleveland State, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your automotive car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. They're open late Monday through Thursday until 9 p.m. and open early Saturday so you can check it off your to-do list and get on with your day. They also have a newly remodeled service lounge and additional service bay just for Quick Lane oil changes. Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck is located at 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 Bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 Bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck. That's QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. He underwent back surgery on March 31st, and the British Open is only his second tournament appearance since. And in today's first round at Royal Liverpool, Tiger Woods bogeyed the first two holes, but finished with a solid 3-under par 69.
Back is good. I'm only going to get stronger and faster and more explosive. So the fact that I came back 4 weeks earlier than we thought and was able to play at a competitive level, and I missed the cut, but I still was able to compete. It gave me a better opportunity for this event.
Woods is 3 strokes behind the leader Rory McIlroy, who shot a 6-under par 66. McIlroy has a 1-stroke lead over Matteo Manassero. Coverage of the first round of the Open Championship is live on ESPN TV, ESPN Radio, and ESPNRadio.com. Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor tells NBA TV his preference is for forward Kevin Love to remain in Minnesota. Love's name has been included in multiple trade discussions. The agent for Matt Kemp tells Fox Sports his client wants to return to his previous role as the everyday center fielder for the Dodgers. But with the Yasiel Puig fixture in right, the Dodgers now have 4 players available to play the other 2 outfield spots.
Brought to you by Mazda. Improve your road game. Mazda is the only automaker to have 2 sedans on this year's Car and Brie and Mazda 6. Combine the performance you want with the efficiency you need.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Indian fever, it's catching fire with everyone. Indian fever.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix, Hour 2, kicking off live on the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc back with you guys as we roll on. Going back to the phones in just a moment. Mike Vandenberry from DidTheTryWinLastNight.com still with us. John McMullen from the Sports Network going to join us just about 20 minutes from now, talking the latest with the NFL and the goings-on as we close into training camp with him. But phone lines are closed for you, but Facebook, Twitter, email wide open. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. On the phones, my man, Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTryWinLastNight.com. We were talking about the Major League Baseball All-Star break and the popularity and things they can do for that with Mike. Mike, how you doing? You still with me?
I'm doing good. I was taken aback as you went to break. You said there's people that don't like me? What's going on?
What? No. Everybody loves you, but they may not like you so much after our next conversation here as we segue into the second half of the season, because you're keeping it real. Actually, you're not really changing much of anything of what you saw looking ahead to the season. I've given everybody, by the way, and I'll give you the same opportunity, chances to revise their predictions here at the halfway point from what we did at the beginning. Let's see. Open up the book here. Looking at the Indians, on the day the season began, we had Mike Brandenberry predicting the Indians to win around 87 games and miss the playoffs entirely. He was the only person that registered that I wrote here of all the Indians people that we talked to who had the Indians missing out on the playoffs. So clearly, and we've talked all through the first half, it's played out a lot like the way, not the way you hoped, but the way you kind of foresaw the first half going.
Yeah, and I was kidding about the people not liking me, but if people don't like my thoughts on the Indians not being very good, they are not going to like what I have to say coming up.
I know.
Because and I really don't ever come on here to say I was right, but I really. In my 8 hours of driving, I have thought long and hard about what we were going to talk about today, and the Indians and the first half, and what do they do moving forward. And I just don't know that I will ever be able to let go of the fact that last winter, this front office acted as if letting Ubaldo Jimenez and Scott Kazmir walk out of town in this rotation, and that they could just fill those innings internally with no problem. I just don't know that I will ever easily be able to let that go. And I think that is something that is not talked about enough, and that they are not held accountable for that. And I feel that every one of them should be wearing that, because I think that is one of many, but I think it's very easy to argue that it's the biggest reason as to why they are at the point that they're at. And I'm not saying that they necessarily should or shouldn't have re-signed Ubaldo or Scott Kazmir, but I'm saying they let 350 innings walk out of that rotation, and they said, well, we have Danny Salazar now, and Trevor Bauer's going to get better, and we have Carlos Carrasco. And I said all winter, you're assuming that everyone is going to stay the same or get better. And what happens if someone regresses? And we've seen that. We've seen it from McAllister, we've seen it from Masterson, and we've seen it from the guy that they hung their hat on the most in Danny Salazar. And I said all winter, I thought it was a huge mistake to count on Danny Salazar after 10 starts and 50 big league innings to be the guy that's going to fill that huge void that they allowed to happen.
You absolutely, positively did. I mean, that drum, more than any other, you have beat since the entire offseason. And what's funny, we're talking about the All-Star game, and while Jerry and I were watching bits and pieces of it the other night, of course, you mentioned Kazmir. He was out there, and Jared just goes, hey, by the way, Dad, why did the Indians let him walk away? And I go, son, that's a loaded question, man. It's because they're the Indians, man. I don't know what to tell you, man.
The snark in me that night wanted to tweet as he took the mound. Now, there's a guy the Indians could really use. I wonder what we'd have to do to land him.
I mean, because in all honesty,
I walked away from my computer.
And think about that, you know? I mean, that's a difference maker. Look at the first half that Scotty Kazmir had. And I was I did not want to see both of those guys roll, man. I wanted the Indians to hold on to one of them, and I understood their arguments, but at the same time, I said, man, Kazmir, look at the difference, too. Ubaldo, he is what he is, and maybe a lot of that could be owed up to whatever he was going through here, his little improvement, and then dropping back off when he left. But Kazmir had done it before and lost it when he got hurt, and he got it back, and it looked like he wasn't going to give it back. That one I really would have thought long and hard about. And we talked about it. We talked about it during the winter, man, and when they let him go to Oakland. But I just thought, when he asked me, what am I supposed to say? I said, man, because they're the Indians, because they didn't want to give him another year. They wanted him to come back here on their terms, and he found somebody that wanted to pay him what he wanted and give him the year that he wanted, and he went. I mean, what else can I say? The Indians let him go because they thought they didn't need him. I didn't know how to answer the kid when he asked me why the Indians let him go. I said, I don't know, because they got Danny Salazar.
That's the answer right there, though, Jerry, is you hit it on the head.
Yeah.
No matter what anyone will say or admit or try to window dress now, the Indians let him go because they thought they didn't need him. Period.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to, and they're wrong, and they're blatantly wrong. And I mean, we're talking about Kazmir, but my thing is, I don't even care. I mean, hindsight's 20/20, and it's easy to say, well, they should have re-signed Scott Kazmir, and it would be easy to be killing him right now if they'd have re-signed Ubaldo and he was, 2-8 and on the DL like he is in Baltimore, and Kazmir was an all-star. But my point all along is you can't let two guys who played such an instrumental part in your 92 wins last year walk out of town and say, we got it covered. And it blows my mind every day that no one holds Chris Antonetti, the front office, Terry Francona, and Mickey Callaway all accountable for that, because I think they should all shoulder some of that blame, because all winter, all I heard was, well, Salazar's going to fill one of those spots. Well, he hasn't. And now what? And now we're left with a season of mediocrity. And I said 87 wins, and I thought they're never going to get there. When you said that, I was like, they're never going to get there.
Yeah, we did the math yesterday. For them to get to what we projected would be the second wild card spot, which would be somewhere around 88 or 89 games based on the way Seattle played so far, and just going off of the status quo. And that requires them to win 66% of their games of the final 69, 68, whatever's left down the stretch here. They would have to win 2/3 of those just to catch up in that second wild card. Not saying it can't be done. It's the second half that they did last year. That's Mike's favorite thing to hear, by the way. But I want to touch real quick on what you said about with Kazmir and Ubaldo and letting those innings, and that regardless, one of them, that was your argument all along, was that you just can't let that many innings and that much experience walk out of this rotation. Look now. I was going to get to this anyway, but David Price, the Indians have come back around in discussions about trading for him. And let's just pretend that that's legit, and they're really, really debating doing it, because he's having a hell of a season. But you listen to the price. You think, okay, you didn't want to go an extra year on Kazmir. You thought, we'll let him go out there and see what he can get from somebody else. Well, now to get Price, the latest thing that I heard is that it's in the Santana and Salazar area, and that's where the discussions are jumping off with Indians and Tampa Bay. So let's assume that that's all you have to give up, that there's no prospects or anything else thrown in. You're now tossing those two guys. You know what I mean? Like, look at the price you're paying now to fill the hole that you could have just filled last year with the guy that you already had.
Right. And it will always infuriate me, maybe because it was so clear to me, and it frustrates me now that it's just not discussed, daily, as to why they let those guys go. And I wouldn't have faulted them if they would have let them both go and they would have brought a veteran in.
Right.
And they would have said, hey, we do have Bauer, we do have Carrasco, we do have Salazar, and one of those guys is going to, and Tomlin too, at the beginning of the season.
Did.
One of those guys is going to fill that last spot. But we went out and signed, player X, and he's going to go with McAllister and Kluber and Masterson. And if you'd have gone into this season with that, I would have been very happy with that. But but the idea that they just excused 350 odd innings off their rotation after Danny Salazar had 10 starts and said, "Hey, we got it covered." I will just never let that go. And I think, what you said, the price of filling that void now is so high. To me, that really leads me to where I think this team should go. And again, to Kid, but if people think that I'm a wet blanket, they're really not going to like the things that I have to say. But I think this next 10 days with 11 games and playing Detroit and a division, I think this is huge. And, for all the cliches and everything we say all year of it's early, you just try to win series, all those things, I think the time's up on that. For the stuff that you just outlined is, at the beginning of the year when I said, people are counting on a 10-game win streak, you're running out of time for that 10-game win streak to play your way back into contention. And with the trade deadline 2 weeks away from today, this 10-day stretch, I think, is massive. And I can't express that enough. And I think if it goes well, you play your way into a situation where maybe you consider going after a part. But, we've talked about it. I'm not sure what they can really trade to go after a part. I mean, if they want to go after David Price with Santana and Salazar, okay. I mean, I would be down with that, for the record. If that's what Tampa Bay wants, punch the ticket, and I'll pick him up from the airport. Especially if we can, if the Indians are willing to, work some kind of long-term deal. I'm not sure I'm willing to pick him up for the airport for a year and a half, but if they can get a long-term deal and the Indians are willing to go that way, monetarily, I'll make that trade right now.
And I'm with you there.
But otherwise, if things don't go well, and I don't even mean disastrous, if the season of mediocrity continues and 47-47 turns into 52-52, and they're 4.5 games out of the wild card at that point, or even if they're still 3.5, or I mean, for that matter, close the gap, call it 2.5. I don't know how you could get closer and only go 500, but say that it happens. I mean, I think you have to really take a step back and you have to look at this team for more than just the next 2 months, and you have to say, are you trying to run your way into a one-game playoff in the wild card again to make a run at it this year in 2014? Or do you want to try to take the next 2 months, and I'm not saying rebuild, but I'm saying, do you want to take the next 2 months as an opportunity to retool and not necessarily even get worse, but retool and look at what you have moving forward for next year? Because, I mean, what are they realistically playing for without a 10-game win streak or, 14 out of 16 clip? I don't see how they're realistically catching the Tigers. So you're talking about the wild card in your best case scenario again, and is that something you want to trade off a part for? And I think the Indians I think you have to be realistic if you take a step back, in that their starting pitching is not up to par to compete at a playoff level. They don't match up with any team you consider to be a World Series contender right now. I mean, match up the Indians' rotation against the Dodgers or Oakland or Detroit or the Cardinals, and it's not even close to passing the smell test. So back up and look at your problem, which is you're going to try to build a team to win in 2015 that's going to have $1 billion, and $30 million of it's going to be wrapped up in Nick Swisher and Michael Bourne. Those are just facts of the matter. And I think you have to really entertain the idea of
40%, man. That's 40%.
Right. I think
Two
you have to really entertain the idea. I mean, if you're going to improve your starting pitching, and that's the most expensive and costly place to improve in Major League Baseball, you're going to have to cut some corners in some other places. And I think, you're going to have to entertain trading a guy here and there, and maybe you don't do it at the trade deadline. Maybe a big trade is in the books for the winter, but maybe you entertain the idea and giving some young guys the opportunity to play in the next 2 months at the big league level to see what they can do. Because after this 10-game stretch, I mean, Mike Aviles, I don't remember his exact quote, but last weekend, I mean, he basically said, it's on us now, and I would agree with him. It's on them, and I'd give them the next 10 days. And hey, if, all those people that have said, don't panic, because this was our record last year, and here's where it is now, and there's no reason to panic. Hey, if they can play their way into this, and they can, thin the lead in this stretch against the Central Division, I'm all for going after it. But if this is still the season of mediocrity 10 days from now, I'm all for giving some guys at the AAA and AA level a 2-month window to play, and because you're going to have to incorporate some of those guys next year at the big league level if you're going to have a contender, if you're going to make a better starting rotation, and you're going to carry Nick Swisher and Michael Bourne. And you don't have a choice. You're carrying those guys. You have to.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about that. I got to tell you, I do believe that the Indians have the pieces on this team to make a run and compete for the playoffs. It's the same team, in essence, that it was at the beginning, but that requires so many of these guys that we've mentioned and some of the ones that we haven't turning things around, and I just don't know. It's like you said, it's hoping that everything goes right, and if it does, that's great, because I do believe that if some of these guys started just doing better than they're doing, not necessarily even blowing the doors off of places, I think they could, but I'm with you, man. That's a lot to ask to fill a lot of different holes like that. A trade helps. It maybe boosts all the boats in the water a little bit, but it's not a salve. It's not a cure-all at the end of the day. It could go a long way, obviously. You make a move for a guy like David Price, yeah, that goes a long way, but it's still on its own, like you said, I don't think it's enough. It takes that and some of these guys coming up. I see Bruce in the chat room. Price is not a free agent at the end of this year. He's a free agent next year, right? So you get the rest of this season.
Yeah, it's a year and a half. I'm not sure I give up Santana and Salazar without an idea that they can sign him long term. I'm willing to do that for a year and a half with David Price, but if they could get it, if they would be willing to sign him long term and commit the money that it would take, I would make that deal in a heartbeat.
That's the key. That's the key to it.
And to be honest, I don't know if Tampa Bay would do that deal. As crazy as it sounds, I mean, I think when the Indians have had those conversations in the past, they've been insistent that Lindor is in that deal. If I could get out of that deal without trading Lindor, I mean, like I said, and the Indians are willing to commit the money long term, I'll pick them up from the airport. But I don't know that Tampa Bay would do it.
Yeah, and we've heard the Indians have set their scouts out on Tampa Bay's prospects, and there's definitely some at least some conversation going on. We'll see here, but like you and I have both said, that it's going to take more than just that. Some of these guys are going to have to also pick up their contributions in the second half. Mike Brandenberry did the Tribe Win Last Night.com, my man. Can't wait to catch up with you next week. The season starts back up tomorrow. As you said, this next run here, 10 games, is really going to decide whether you're buyers or sellers and where the final 60 games of the season are going to go. It's going to be a fun ride. Hopefully, looking forward to talking about it with you each and every week as we go through it, man.
I'm looking forward to it. For all the, I don't even call it negativity, for all the realism that I feel like I have. I want to be wrong often. I hope Masterson comes back off the DL and is hot, and I hope McAllister finds it, and they do rattle off a stretch of 16 out of 20 and run their way right back in it. a lot more fun to talk about winning than it is talking about trading guys off and retooling for next season.
You got that right. Whichever way it's going, we'll start to know next week. Mike, I'll catch up with you here. We'll, of course, read you on didthetryWinLastNight.com, and then we'll talk to you next week here on the Sports Fix.
Sounds good, my man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. Mike Brandenberry on his way back from the Eastern League All-Star Game extended conversation today. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're shifting gears. John McMullen from the Sports Network joins us to talk about some of the latest off-season stuff going on around the NFL and the Washington club, Redskins. They're going to be able to choose if they say it on TV. This thing's just getting ridiculous. Anyways, we'll talk about that. Greg Hardy, the Ravens, arrests, off-field stuff. John McMullen, the Sports Network, the NFL talk, coming up next here on the Sports Fix.
A public service announcement from the Sports Fix. We here at the Sports Fix and our affiliates would like to apologize for any disturbing verbal actions, but remember, it's better having them trapped in a box than loose on the streets. Public service announcement from the Sports Fix. The Sports Fix, the sports show that cares.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Indians fans, GV Art and Design has unleashed their new baseball collection. This summer, you've got to have one of the hottest baseball shirts available. Indians themes, GV Art has them covered from top to bottom. Chief Wahoo, keep the Chief, one of the hottest sellers going today. GV Artwork, knocking it out of the park, teaming up with Michael Brantley to create a custom Dr. Smooth t-shirt, bringing back an old classic. GV Artwork, bringing out the wild thing. Give them the heater design. The Cleveland That I Glove collection continues to grow. New designs for women and so much more. GVArtwork.com, bringing it full force to the plate for baseball season this year. Whether you check them out online, GVArtwork.com, use the sales code FIX10, FIX10 to save 10% on your total purchase. Whether you go to their store in Lakewood, check them out at the Cleveland Indians team shops around Progressive Field and so much more. GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
I've been a pro wrestler my whole life, so championship belts have always kind of been a way of life to me. But did you know title belts are quickly becoming the fastest rising and the most popular new way for people to celebrate all kinds of things you never would have thought of before? We use it for our fantasy football league. It's a really cool conversation piece. Office pools, employee of the month, you name it. There's tons of different trophies that you used to buy plaques for. Well, I'm here to tell you about Pro-Am Championship belts, who have the highest quality championship belt with the lowest price. Replace those old trophies with stock belts on hand that they can customize for as low as $30. Any occasion, celebrations, awards, championships, fantasy leagues, gifts, plus wrestling, mixed martial arts, boxing. If you need championship belts, check them out. Pro-Am Championship Belts, ProAmBelts.com. Look them up on Facebook, Pro-Am Belts. Trust me, nothing says cool like doing the discount double check with a real championship belt. Just ask Aaron Rodgers. Now you too can have one thanks to Pro-Am Championship Belts.
Hi, this is CJ Miles of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
I'm just going to wait for free agency to be over, and then I'll go in there and change all of those. Of course, half the team's different now, so I will edit those. C.J. Miles is an Indiana Pacer, not a Cleveland Cavalier. We heard that the other day with somebody else, too. Tyler Zeller, also no longer a Cleveland Cavalier. Welcome back into the Sports Fix. J-Rocc back with you here, and in just a moment, going to be joined on the phone lines with my man, John McMullen from the Sports Network. We're going to talk a little bit about all the latest going on around the NFL. A lot of offseason stuff. I talked about this before, about how the front offices and general managers definitely fear this time of year. Just look down the headlines of the NFL section on ESPN or anything, and you can see why. Arrest, guilty pleas, evidence, hearings, trials, not guilty, guilty. It's just half the stories on the top 10 here have to do with legal matters. Going to talk to John McMullen from the Sports Network in just a minute about all of that. And of course, as always, want to talk to you guys. You can't get on the phones, but you can get on the social media. You can email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Jump on Facebook and Twitter, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. Sitting here looking real quick as I wait for John to call in. I'm looking at, they were right in the thing. Tiger Woods still remains 3 shots back of Rory McIlroy here as he continues his comeback. I'll tell you, I've always had a thing. I mean, obviously, a lot of people get into the popularity of Tiger Woods, but man, I've always, since I've got into Tiger Woods more since he stopped being Superman, if that makes sense. Like, everybody was into him in that run. Obviously, you think back, what was it, 2000, when he was at the absolute peak of his powers, both athletically and just socially with the media and popularity and all of that stuff, when he was truly at his peak. And I don't know, I got more into him after he started struggling and the back half of his career, and watching him and watching him try to live up to, and which you can't do, by the way, for people that try to hold him. I'm not gonna go too far onto this, but for people that try to hold him to those standards of the early part of Tiger's career, that's nuts, because that wasn't just like upper level stuff. I mean, that's rarefied air where people don't live in those lands very often, and when they do, it's not for extended periods of time, except the truly great ones. But I've gotten more into Tiger in the second half of his career. Maybe it's because he became human, and then plus it's his talent in general was always it's always fascinating to me when a guy is so good at something and gets so bored at being so good at it that he changes everything just to be. That's a true athlete challenging himself at the top, where he just goes, you know what? I'm tired of winning these tournaments by 20 strokes. I'm just going to completely tear apart my swing and try it again and just make up something new and prove that I can win again. So I kind of get into that aspect too. But I like seeing the back end here. And I'm one of the guys, maybe you're not. Some people don't like Tiger Woods, but I'm rooting for him to get back. Maybe he'll never finish the run with the championships. Maybe he won't catch number one there, but I'm rooting for him along the way, guys. I got a soft spot for Tiger Woods. I really do. Anyways, done with that. Getting back into the show. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. On the phone lines, not you, my man John McMullen from the Sports Network. John, how you doing this afternoon?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here, as always. And, the last couple of weeks, you and I have talked about it. Myself and some other guests have talked about how this is kind of that. Nobody in the front offices, they all sit uneasy. Their heartbeats beat an extra, skip a beat every couple of seconds here, because you just want to get to camp. You want to, especially the month of July, you just want to get this thing over with, get everybody into camp and going. And I was telling the listeners right before you jumped on the phone lines, you need to go no further than today and just go to any site. I'll pick ESPN at random and just look at the top NFL stories today. This is why they don't like it. Every 5 of the top 10 have to do with evidence, guilty, not guilty, hearings being put off, this, that, and the other thing. That's exactly what front offices fear about this time of the year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's what it's become. And all the legal stuff comes to the forefront, and it's always a concern. We've talked about it time and time again, and everyone holds their breath. And, you know, I think it's even gotten a little bit worse for coaches and front office people because, you know, the new CBA, the one we're currently under, is, you know, drastically cut back off-season activities. So there's a lot less time you have with your players, and when there's a lot less time, they're doing something productive at the team's facility. That means they're out doing something else, and sometimes, again, young men don't make the best decisions in the world, and you know, it can be an issue. And I think it's only been exacerbated by the new CBA, and that's one of those unintended consequences. If you asked, you know, players to say, yeah, we don't want to be beholden to these organizations for our entire summer. Everybody deserves vacation and the ability to spend some time with their family. It all sounds good, but like with everything else, you have unintended consequences, and that's one of the unintended consequences of this, is that, you know, idle hands, that old saying, is the devil's workshop, and you see it come to the forefront time and time again.
And we're seeing it here. Let's go through a couple of those cases. Greg Hardy, a big one in the news here, found guilty. We talked about when the initial charges and police reports and accusations came out with the guns and all of the, it sounded salacious enough then. Then when you go through now, and there's some news articles out there, you guys could go look this stuff up for yourselves, but there's some just the one that I saw with just some of the 25 most salacious quotes that came out of the Greg Hardy proceedings here in the court. Amazing when you read some of this stuff. Definitely a black eye on the NFL, on him, just an ugly thing all around. Now he was found guilty, but it's not official because he has the option of actually asking for a jury trial with his appeal. So does that mean that the guilty plea is set aside for now and he will now have to do a trial by jury, correct?
Well, you know, he was sentenced to, I think it was 18 months probation and suspended jail sentence by the judge. And
yeah,
you know,
like 2 months of jail sentence or something.
Yeah, so I'm not as sure. I forget how long it was, but obviously it's going to be suspended anyway. In North Carolina, though, that means, you know, that Hardy, you know, can ask for the jury trial and put the probation on hold. So, and that'll enable him for a number of things. Number one is to actually play for the team, obviously, and travel and things like that. So, you know, it's just a legal process, and it has to ramp itself up. But if you're the Carolina Panthers, you know, you're thinking to yourself, certainly, you know, we shouldn't be dealing with this. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, and the fact that Greg Hardy's one of the best pass rushers in football, and it's very difficult to just say, you know, similar situation that you guys have in Cleveland with Josh Gordon is, you know, it's very difficult to say we're just going to give up on this guy because he is so talented. So it's a tough situation for everyone involved.
I'll tell you, you look through outside of what the sentence is and what the football ramifications are going to be for Carolina, for Hardy, and all of that. And I know it's he said, she said on a lot of this, but some of this stuff, leads you back to, if there's some smoke with this fire, then there's some real problems. Like I would definitely, if I was the organization, I would want to. I don't care who was guilty of what the legal technical terms was. I'd want to look deeper into that and find out how much of that was legit, because, you know, some of that stuff is hardcore.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not, you know, and I know there's been a lot of women's groups that have looked into the NFL. And it's one of those things that really hasn't caught on, you know, to the general public as much as some of the other high-profile issues. But there's been a significant, you know, whether it's spousal abuse or girlfriend abuse, there's been a problem in the NFL, a consistent problem. Some people, you know, everybody wants simple answers, and they want to point to maybe the violence of the game and the fact that these guys are asked to you know, go 1,000,000 miles an hour on Sunday afternoons and then return to the regular world, so to speak, and act like civilized people. So I don't know. You know, I don't know the answer to that one. you'd have to talk to a psychiatrist. But the league as a whole has had some significant, as I said, abuse problems, whether it be spouse, girlfriends. You look at Chris Cook, the cornerback in San Francisco now. He had an issue. Lawrence Phillips had some famous issues.
Oh, yeah.
The running back from Nebraska. And there's been many of them over the year. And you try to, you try to break it down and figure out what's the issue. Why is this happening? And you're right. Obviously, Ray Rice, you can't forget that one. That just happened this off season. But it is a he said, she said type of thing. In a situation where you do talk about Ray Rice, then his girlfriend at the time, who's now his wife, completely defends him and backs him after the incident. In this, incident with Hardy, the accuser admitted using cocaine on the night of the incident, and alcohol was involved too. So, to me, I look at that both ways and say, well, that could actually, kind of speak to Hardy's side of the issue. But, if you're the Panthers, you say to yourself, well, if Greg Hardy's, girl is doing that, is he doing it? Is he involved with things like that? So, it's very troubling on so many levels.
I mean, especially because at the end of the day, the court found him guilty of some aspect of this. It had all of the things, too, all the big flags. You had drugs, like you mentioned, and alcohol, and sex, and violence, and guns, and it really had all the hot button things, But, I mean, it is he said, she said. But when you hear quotes like, he looked me in my eyes and told me he was going to kill me. I was so scared I wanted to die. When he loosened his grip, I said, just do it, just kill me, and I accepted I was going to die. That is, even with the he said, she said, man, that's some hardcore testimony there. And you hear, like you said, with drugs and alcohol and everything involved, that's a much worse incident just waiting to happen. I don't care what the final legal ramifications are, because that's the kind of story that years later you look back and go, why didn't somebody see the signs? Why didn't somebody step in before something worse happens down the road?
Yeah, and I hear you, and by no means am I trying to say, I tend to, when you see all the evidence and you see all the guns and you see the things that happen, I tend to lean towards, obviously, the accuser side, and so did the court, and I think rightfully so. So it should be, obviously, a serious wake-up call, first and foremost, for Greg Hardy, obviously, but also the Panthers. But, again, it's very difficult, and we talk about it again and again and again, and Ray Rice, and, as I said, Lawrence Phillips, Chris Cook. And again, you think about the Carolina Panthers, and you think Ray Caruso. So, and that might have been the most, famous domestic violence case of them all in the NFL. And he conspired to murder his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend, by the way.
I remember that.
He's still
I remember
in prison.
that case.
Yes. 18. And you think about Ray Caruso, who's a first-round draft choice. He was a high-profile player. And now, for whatever reason, people have very, very short memories. And, this game is so loved, it just seems like the public and the fans are willing to overlook a lot of things. And that's maybe some of the dirty underside of professional football, because people are willing to overlook some serious things to get their entertainment on Sundays.
Sure. And when I was doing my research, like all week, even when I thought, before we moved you from Monday, when I was going to talk to you about some of this, I was looking, because initially I was going to talk to you about Jimmy Smith, and we'll get to that with the Ravens. They've had 5 guys. You bring up Ray Rice. I started to notice how many of these off-field incidents had to do with domestic violence type situations, and I'm like, man, that is clearly becoming a real red flag hot button issue with the NFL and those guys. And we're talking drugs too. Jimmy Smith, I'll just go into that. he was arrested. He was arrested with the lady that was intoxicated in the restroom, and he ended up being arrested for not cooperating with the police, not for anything that has to do with her. But as I'm reading different accounts of what happened, I'm hearing accounts of this lady using cocaine. And again, there's another word that the NFL doesn't want to hear attached to these things. And I'm like, man, if nothing else, you guys make terrible decisions about the people you surround yourself with, and that's giving you all the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and I think, you look at the Ravens, who are considered, one of the better organizations in the NFL, and I think that was the fifth arrest they've had this offseason. So it's not easy, and I always get, a kick out of, when these kind of things happen and they kind of point toward the head coach, and maybe they'll use the, sort of those buzzwords, undisciplined and his inability to control players. I think it's laughable. I really do. And again, because we're talking about adults, number one, they've collectively bargained hard to get this time off. You can't expect any head coach, any front office person, any general manager, any owner in the National Football League to just stop this kind of thing.
No,
it's not possible. It's not their fault. And you look at, you mentioned, you're exactly right with the Jimmy Smith. I when I first heard about that, I kind of read the reports and I said, well, Jimmy was trying to do a good thing.
Right.
And I think maybe the police kind of overreached in that type of instance, but then you do hear you brought up a good point. You hear the buzzword, you hear cocaine, and say to yourself, what are you doing? Why are you surrounding yourself with these type of people? And I've said the same thing about, Johnny Manziel on this show time and time again. Yeah. And obviously, Johnny doesn't deserve to be in this conversation because he's never been arrested. He's never done anything wrong. But, he's making bad decisions. And, if you start doing that consistently, it's only a matter of time you get popped for something.
And it's funny you brought up the coaches because one of the other stories, I mean, we don't even need to mention Aaron Hernandez. He's up there. And the latest, by the way, I don't know if you saw that last little blurb, the last update I saw was that they're busting down, which I saw they charged her with perjury, I believe, his girl for throwing away the evidence, and they got direct proof. He's just going up the creek quick. But I think about the story that I just saw the other day about how they had all the text messages between Belichick and Aaron Hernandez that obviously had nothing to do with anything outside the NFL. But when you mention the limited things that the players and coaches can do, I was actually thinking about that when I was reading about the number of text messages between Belichick and Hernandez. I'm going, literally, like, what could stop? Let's say he's in the car and he's about to shoot this guy, or he just got done. He gets a text message. I mean, it takes 2 seconds to go, just studying the playbook, coach. Can't wait for September. And then you put the phone down and he goes and puts his work in. And so really, what can you do when you look back and say, let's hold the coach responsible, let's hold the team responsible? Now, I get it where with the Browns, with Josh Gordon, where people say too many, you got to let the guy go. But it's not like the Browns are sitting around going, we'll just let these guys do whatever they want, or the Ravens, or any of these teams, or the Patriots. Like you said, there's only so much you can do with grown men.
Yeah, and you're right. I agree. That's when you can start the criticism, and that's at what point do you cut the cord? And I've advocated the Browns cutting the cord with Josh Gordon. I've done the same to the 49ers with Aldon Smith.
Yep.
And you would have to look at the Panthers now too, and Greg Hardy. And I know it's easier said than done. Because the minute you cut a player like that, in Gordon's case, it would be a little less because he's going to be gone for a year no matter what. So, but anytime you cut a player, there's going to be another team waiting to pick him up, and it's sometimes the one thing I can criticize, maybe a general manager or maybe an owner who doesn't make these type of tough decisions is the fact that at some point it becomes about more than football, and we talked about that last week. And I think it's about helping the actual individual. and they're all different cases, obviously. I think there's some serious, you ask me personally, I think, obviously, by definition, Josh Gordon seems addicted to marijuana. I think, a kid like Alden Smith has, some significant psychological issues, and who knows what's going on with Greg Hardy. And obviously, Aaron Hernandez is just beyond anything that anyone could ever imagine. And that's one thing where I said, people took shots at the Patriots, and I kind of defended them. I go, who would ever imagine that anyone would act like this? It doesn't even come into your thinking, your thought process, that somebody would do the things Aaron Hernandez is accused of. So I find it very hard to believe people who think that the Patriots were aware they had a psychopath under their roof at Gillette Stadium and just went about their business. I think they, like the rest of us, had no idea just how deep Aaron Hernandez was into some of the stuff he was doing.
Same with, Darren Sharper. He's, we know. I mean, obviously, still in the courts, things have to be proven. But when you look at the depth of accusations and the spread out nature, again, where there's smoke, there's fire. But that's another guy who, from surfaces, had everything going for him. Was a relatively good-looking guy, built, money, career, fame, all of that stuff. And you listen to some of the depraved things that he's accused of doing here. But who in the world, organizationally, teammate-wise, whatever, would have thought that about a guy like Darren Sharper?
Well, that's a perfect example, because I've had a somewhat personal relationship with Darren Sharper, and we're not friends by any stretch of the imagination, but we've talked numerous times over the years. And if you would have asked me before that, I would tell you he's the nicest guy in the world. I mean, he treated me with nothing but respect over the years. Every person I ever talked to about Darren Sharper only had good things to say about him as a person, and look how it turns out. Any of us, think about anyone listening to this. Think about your friends and the people you talk to on a daily basis. They go home and you have no idea what they're doing. I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything.
No, but you're right. You're right.
There are people who live double lives, and to me, I certainly don't look back on any of my conversations with Darren Sharper and say, wow, I should have known this guy was what he was, because why would I? I'm just talking to a guy on a personal level, and it seems like a nice guy. It's and that's what you're dealing with when you're talking about NFL teams. Why would it ever enter into your mind that somebody was a serial sex offender, or somebody was a serial murderer like Aaron Hernandez seems to be, or somebody had a bigger cache of guns than the Charlotte Police Department like Greg Hardy? It's just stuff you don't think about in your daily life, because you expect most people expect other people to have just that common decency, and maybe that's the fault of human nature to begin with. But I don't know how you fix that if you're an NFL team, because you can't expect the worst out of people. That's just a terrible way to live life in general. So it's very difficult for me to place a lot of criticism on specific teams.
Absolutely right. And when you bring up the guns, I just right here as I was going through the quotes, the first quote, and this is just to say it goes to the civilian and not just the athlete. When the first words you say when you walk into a boyfriend, potential boyfriend, friend with benefits, whatever, when you walk in and the first words are, oh my God, there's so many guns here. Maybe, just maybe, that is clue number one that you should turn around and maybe not continue this party anymore at this point. I know he's got money. I know he's got muscles and he plays football. But at that point,
I was gonna say, my guess would be in that type of situation, after she saw the gun, she saw his check.
She saw the gun show, and then she
on
saw the
check.
But I'm just saying, when your first statement is, wow, there's so many guns here, you can only guess where things may go from there. And I'm guessing a lot of times it's not to go hunting for ducks and swans. And I'm not talking about inflatable swans either. So anyways, but just something else before I let you go, off of the legal issues and all of that stuff, but just something that I saw this morning, and it's not going away, which we keep mentioning, but I saw the blurb about CBS and how they're going to put the onus on the announcers. They're going to let them decide whether or not they want to say Redskins. Now, I could be wrong, but I, at this point, don't recall ever hearing a story from an announcer that said that they felt bad pressure to say it, that they didn't want to use the term. So I don't know that that was an issue within the announcers or the programming or production. Maybe you know more than I do as far as that goes, but I'm just like, man, why make that point? I mean, it within the context of an NFL game, they're the Washington Redskins. That's the name of the football team, you know?
Yeah, I've argued that from day one. In fact, there was a national writer came out last year and said he wasn't going to use the term Redskins, and I kind of criticized him for the same reason, and I would do the same. And Bob Costas was pretty, heavy on one of his TV comments about it. And
okay,
it's one thing, as I said, and Peter King was the writer, and I said it's one thing if you want to do it in a column where it's your opinion and it's fine. There's no issue if that's your belief. But you hit the nail on the head. The name of the team is the Washington Redskins. And if you're performing a news service, if you're writing a news story, or if you're broadcasting the game, that's the name of the team. It's your job to actually, give the information as best as possible. And until that name changes, in my opinion, is that Sean McManus, who's the head of CBS, should, if there was any decree to his announcers, it should have been that. And the fact that is the team's name. Until that changes, we have to refer to them by their name. That to me makes the most sense for a news organization, and that's what CBS Sports is at its core. I know a lot of people don't think of it that way, but that's what we are in general. It's just a different part of the news, but it is news, and you can't refuse to acknowledge something that exists. That's not news reporting at its core.
Yeah, and when I read this, my thought was, with it being preemptive, if there was an issue that they were dealing with, then that's one thing. But it almost like you created another issue, because now, what is there, 5 Redskins games that are going to be on CBS. So now they'll be keeping track of who's saying the name and who's not. And it now maybe somebody who could have cared less before, goes out of their way not to say it. There's just, you open up another can of worms that really you weren't putting out a fire, in my opinion. You were just kind of opening up.
Well, yeah, I've been like that from the entire controversy. To me, has been manufactured, because I think it doesn't have its roots in a natural progression. I think it's been a group of politically correct people who think the ends justify their means, and this is not a public service announcement for either side of this. But as I said, and I've written about it many times, the argument itself is disingenuous to say that Daniel Snyder or anyone involving the Washington Redskins are racist for using the term Redskins. You can make the argument, it's a legitimate argument to say it's a disparaging word, and we can move forward from there. But it's done on purpose, because people are afraid to be labeled racist, and rightfully so, and no one should be so cavalierly described as that. because I don't think anyone, even the worst, haters of Daniel Snyder who think he's an abject disaster as an owner and hate the Redskins, I don't think anybody thinks that they're being honest and logical, that he is in any way saying that any race is at its core better than Native Americans, which is the actual definition of racism. So I think that whole argument is just so disingenuous, and it really does no service. And to me, as I said, I grew up, a whole generation of people never use that word in a disparaging manner. I can say that, with no equivocation whatsoever. I never met anyone who said that word in a disparaging manner, and to me, you're teaching a whole new generation that it's a hateful word, and I think that's taken a step back. That's not progress. You're moving backwards.
I 100% agree with what you just said, and I dare anybody listening, and not in a bad way, in a good way, because tell us if we're wrong. Like what John said, I can say the exact same thing. Never before this argument was made was that in any way, in my whole life, I never heard it. I knew what words were, okay to say and what weren't growing up, and even the ones you could get away with that you shouldn't have been saying. Never did I ever see it in that way. My entire life, Redskins went one thing and one thing only: the team that plays football in Washington. That is the God's honest truth. I'm not saying that because I'm a sports guy. It was not, in my lifetime, any kind of a racial slur.
No, and I've written, and believe me, I've already been called the R word, not Redskin, but racist.
I'm with you, though. I agree. It's not.
No, and I'm saying, me, I've been writing a national column for about 20 years now, so I'm used to getting criticized at times, and some people have said some pretty nasty things at times. So I'm kind of used to it. But the average person, is going to get very upset by that, and they're going to be afraid to be labeled that. So they automatically, and that's what political correctness does. It's kind of a, I called it in one of my columns the intolerance, trying to stamp out intolerance, because that's exactly what it is. The people who are being intolerant towards other people's opinions are just as intolerant as the people they claim are intolerant. So it's just a circle of nonsense as far as I'm concerned.
A circle of nonsense. You're right. And you know what? You set me up perfectly for my last note, because it looks like this is totally off of all the serious things that we've just been talking about, but it looks like the Dallas Cowboys are one injury away from Brandon Whedon being their starting quarterback. Have you seen the way the quarterback situation's shaking out there, man? They may get Whedon.
Yeah, they're not even one injury away. Their quarterback is coming off back surgery. So,
they're there now.
Tony Romo can't go, and he's also 34. Don't forget that. He's now 34 years old. So it's a 34-year-old guy returning from herniated disc surgery. I got a feeling Brandon Whedon's going to see a snap or two in Dallas this season.
And his spry, young, 31-year-old backup quarterback, Brandon Whedon, man, I'll tell you. Jerry Jones is going to wish he drafted John Manziel before this thing is all said and done. You watch, man. John McMullen.
Well, I think he did a good job this year. He drafted Zach Martin. I think that's going to help because their offensive line. But no, in all seriousness, obviously Jerry Jones is not ever going to be known as a guy who builds his roster correctly. So,
hey,
it's no surprise to see him in a position to where he's got a very, very, shaky quarterback as far as health goes, and he couldn't, work things out with Kyle Orton, and now you're going to have to go with an unproven guy as the main backup.
There you go. One thing, I just thought about this, and I want to ask you, because I've never heard advertisements for this or anything, but I had some fun watching it last night. I was flipping through the channels, and I came across the American Muscle Show. Have you seen it?
I have not. Is that the car show?
No, American Muscle. It's the gym where they train the athletes, the elite level athletes. Like last night they had Mike Martin was on it. Dominican Sue was there working out. It's like a reality show about one of those gyms that trains those elite level athletes, works at, like Sue was in there working on explosiveness and stuff like that. And it was just, I didn't even know the show existed. I found it on a commercial break, flipping through some of the channels, and I quickly figured out what it was. It's kind of interesting. I've never heard of it. It's called American Muscle. And it's about this guy that owns a gym for those top-level guys. It's pretty interesting. You should, if you get a chance to look it up and check it out, it's kind of interesting to see some of these guys compete with each other lifting. Like last night, Sue and Mike Martin, they're both some big boys. And they're clean and jerking, 400 pounds like it's nothing and competing with each other. Kind of interesting off-season stuff if you're into that thing in football. Private stuff, not team stuff. Watching these guys train. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm with you. I did not know that existed. So
me neither. I'm like, what is this? American Muscle? All right, cool, man. I'm with it. So, and at one point it got a little awkward because you had like a Packers offensive lineman and Sue in there at the same time talking about eating Packers quarterbacks and stuff. So you had some
Sue probably already stepped on his head too.
Exactly. You had some trash talk going on and stuff. It's a pretty cool thing. American Muscle. Check it out. I don't even remember the channel, to be honest with you. It was like one of those history, in that area, that package of channels somewhere in there. But anyways, check it out, John. John McMullen from the Sports Network. He's usually with us on Mondays, but thank God today's not Monday. It's Thursday. He's with us today. He'll be back on Monday. John, almost training camp time, man. Then we really pick it up.
Yeah, we got it just a little bit more than a week to go, and we'll be going all full bore. So
that's it, man. One or two more.
Stop talking about arrest. Hopefully,
one or two more. You guys want to, get a DUI this weekend? That'll help us out next week, and then after that, we're good to go, man. John, enjoy your weekend. We'll catch up on Monday.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thank you, my man, John McMullen from the Sports Network. It's always a great time whenever John joins us here. When we come back, we're going to wrap things up. I want to talk a little bit more. I'm going to go back to that. I was telling you guys earlier in the show, the top 50 rated sporting events of the year. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll wrap things up. Nick Saban, man, $100 million head coach. That was what I saw. We'll talk about that, wrap things up. Don't go anywhere. Last segment of the Sports Fix coming up. Phone lines open for a few minutes. 216-539-7535. Last chance to get on the phones. Last segment of the Sports Fix coming up next.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
Throwing you the best sports commentary in town. The Sports Fix.
It's an addiction. The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Indians fans, GV Art and Design has unleashed their new baseball collection. This summer, you've got to have one of the hottest baseball shirts available. GVArtwork.com, bringing it full force to the plate for baseball season this year. Whether you check them out online, GVArtwork.com, use the sales code FIX10, FIX10 to save 10% on your total purchase. Whether you go to their store in Lakewood, check them out at the Cleveland Indians team shops, and so much more. GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement.
No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials.
And now,
fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens.
Let's get it all!
And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger.
They sure are good.
Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious.
Hey there, eat up, y'all. You's as good church-going folk. Y'all deserve a little treat.
What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd. Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck, home of the low price tire guarantee. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Back in 1990, when I joined Herb in the booth, you could say that first game was when I became a lifelong Tribe fan. Something about Cleveland made us want to stay and call it our home, raise our family here. I can promise you one thing, home or on the road, I feel what you folks feel, what you feel every game. Cleveland fans are passionate and pretty vocal. I respect that. This is our team. This is our town. This is a Tribe Town.
Hey, this is Alonzo G. from the Cleveland Cavaliers. You're listening to the Sports Fix.
There goes another one. Alonzo G. Remember I believe he's a Pelican. He's a New Orleans Pelican now, but he's not a Cavalier either. I gotta fix those for next week. Cavs, if you guys are gonna trade anybody else, could you do me a favor? Do it in the next couple of days so I can be good to go and back on the straight and narrow come next week. Welcome back to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc back with you, wrapping things up here. Final few minutes of the show. One last chance if you want to get in. 216-539-7535. Thanks to John McMullen from the Sports Network for joining us. He's usually with us on Mondays, but he was here with us today. Great little time talking to him. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. An extended conversation with him. Guys, we got through it. We have officially gotten through the three non-sports days of the year. The slowest week, the middle, the nadir point. It's done. Blown out the water. And now it's full steam ahead. Baseball back in effect tomorrow. Just a week and a half away from training camps here kicking off. I mean, we're 60 days away from the start of the NFL season. We're 90 days away from training camp with the Cavaliers and the beginning of the basketball season. I mean, it's all downhill from here. College hoops, college football, playoff races. I mean, it's on like Donkey Kong. Before you know it, the Lake Erie Monsters will be back in action. My man, Doug Plagens, calling the Monsters action. I'm feeling good, man, but this is it. So good job getting through this here today. Thanks to those guys for being with us. Quickly looking ahead to tomorrow, Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire in the house. Jeff Gorman back on the scene from Browns101.com. We'll talk to him about the latest going on with the Cleveland Browns this week. Doug Plagens from the Monsters, tentatively scheduled to be in the house. Monsters set, August 2nd for the playoff game there. We'll talk to Doug about all of that. A couple of things I wanted to talk to you. Nick Saban, I wanted to bring this up. I was going to bring it up earlier, and then I said, you know what, I'll just put it off till the end of the show. It's not like a whole lot to go into, but the story of Texas. You know, you guys heard a lot of times, I love to wait, after the fact. When things come out, you get all the details. You looked at Alabama, they gave Saban the extension. There was all that talk. First off, there was all that talk that Big Pile Jimmy was going to go try to make the sweep and take him. But you heard all that talk about Texas, and I will tell you what, man, for Nick Saban to stay, if this what it was written about the offer is true, for him to stay strong and stay loyal to Alabama, more power to him. They ended up giving him a $55 million contract extension, which leads through 2022 for him in Alabama. But apparently, according to a new book, Paul Finebaum of the SEC Network wrote a new book, My Conference Can Beat Your Conference, and he talked about the negotiations. And he said Texas basically tried to beat Nick Saban over the head with money, club him with dollar bills, and convince him to come to Texas. The Longhorns were supposedly prepared to offer Saban a $12 to $15 million signing bonus and then a salary package worth over $100 million plus performance bonuses that are always thrown into coaches' offers and that. I mean, you got to do the math. I mean, that's probably... easily, there's 115 on the table there. Who knows what the bonuses could be, but, that's dead minimum. You walked away from $115 million, took the 55 from Alabama out of loyalty or out of happiness, or whatever, but that's a $60 million drop there, man. So, and he told Chris Lowe back when he made the extension with Alabama that he never once ever considered taking the Texas offer. More power to him. That's an incredibly staunch man in his beliefs, because $50 million will make a lot of people flinch and a lot of people back out on their beliefs. But man, if that's true, kudos to him, because that's a hell of a recruiting wave right there. When cats are coming at you waving that kind of money at you, like more than double what you're at now, and you're already one of the highest paid at what you do. To stand strong in that, I will give credit for that, man. definitely hats off for that. Not that anybody's missing any meals on $55 million either. The Saban family will do just fine without Texas's money. Allow me to clarify that, but still, that's generational money to leave on the table there. He did it, though. I mean, hey, more power to him, you guys. The other thing I wanted to get into down at the home stretch of the show here, I was talking earlier with Mike. I was interested. I pulled up the 50 most watched sporting events of 2014 so far, everything up through the last couple of days, through the first half of the year. NFL dominates this thing. I mean, that's the first thing that you notice right off the top. The NFL is all over this thing, but you had some different things this year that you don't normally have, and you could see them reflected in this. Exactly half, 25 of the 50 most watched sporting events this year were Olympics and World Cup. The World Cup had 7 of the top 50 events. We talked the other day about the final, and what was it, 26.5 million. The final ended up being the 13th most watched sporting event in the entire country here for this year. The only things above it being the NFL. That's it. It's 11 NFL games and the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. The top 10 on this thing, for anybody that argues that the NFL has not won the popularity game, this takes this out the window. The top 10, only the opening ceremony of the Olympics, that's the only non-NFL event in the top 10 things that were most watched. Super Bowl 48, clearly number one. 46.7, 112 million viewers. Both AFC and NFC championship games were the next two, 55 and 51 million viewers. Wild card, let's see, everything is playoff action. The top 8 spots, all playoff games for the NFL, divisional round, wild card, championship round, and the Super Bowl. Drop through. The only in the top 15, see, now you finally, the NFL loses its stronghold when you get around 13. You start to go through. The Olympics have a lot of the 13 through 20 area. Olympics primetime coverage has a lot of that covered. They averaged roughly 25 million or so viewers for every one of those. The BCS championship, the centerpiece for college football, Florida State and Auburn. That game across the 3 channels that it was broadcast on did nearly 26 million. That was the next event, 15th college football's championship game jumps in. A little bit, there you go. You know, for people that talk about soccer, we make jokes. Mike and I were talking about that. The final of the World Cup beat the final of the college football championship for all the money and all of the prestige that the advertising dollars tied into that silver crystal trophy. Yeah, they don't have the crystal trophy anymore. They have the new thing that they made. I thought that crystal football was way cooler. But the BCS title game, 15th on the list. USA and Portugal. That was the first USA World Cup that broke the top 20. USA Belgium also broke the top 25. The Belmont Stakes was the first non-team sport, non-Olympic event to be in there. That was 26th of the top 50. 26th was the Belmont Stakes. A lot of people were into the Triple Crown run. Nearly 21 million people watched the Belmont Stakes. Rose Bowl was number 32. The highest NBA game was the last game of the NBA Finals, the Heat and the Spurs, Game 5. The ABC production did a 10.3 rating, 18 million people. So even that will show you the popularity levels. Look at that. The college football BCS championship game did 26 million people, and that was on the ESPN networks, which is a cable platform, which is less widely held. I mean, I think there's about 20 million less people in the country that have cable than don't, but it is definitely a measurable difference. The Heat and the Spurs was on ABC. I got 57 letters in front of me. I was about to tell you it was on ASPCN. The Heat and the Spurs was on broadcast TV, and it still did almost 10 million less than the college football championship did, and 130 million less than the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is the untouchable, so really you can't even look at that one. But going back through here, Heat and Spurs had a couple of other games. All 5 games of the NBA Finals were in the listing. However, as I said, the highest rated game was the last one at 33. All the other ones are in the 40s of the top 50 events. And what I found the most interesting is the 50th ranked event was the NFL draft. The NFL draft has finally crept its way into the top 50 rated television events. It was on ESPN and the NFL Network. 12.37 million people watched the NFL draft on television. I mean, and the fact that, like Mike and I brought up, not a single baseball game in that listing. Not that, and you know what? There hasn't been, in all fairness, you really got to revisit that at the end of the year. Because all of the big marquee, these are all championships. Baseball hasn't had that. Baseball's had the early season stuff. So there's really no reason for baseball to be on this list yet. Let's revisit where it's at the end of the year. But it's interesting to see the viewing trends and in the NFL, man. I just thought I have to point this out to people that think that it's just football fans that exaggerate the popularity nationwide of the NFL. They have a chokehold on the television viewing public in America, and it's the reason why they make so much money off that TV contract. And you know what? The other thing I noticed too, this is the first time in several years, no NASCAR, no golf in the top 50. The Daytona 500, the big one, dropped, only less than 9.5 million people watched it. The Masters, both of those events dropped nearly 25% from the year before. Didn't make the list. The Masters finished 51st, right below the NFL draft. More people were interested in watching a non-sporting event NFL draft than both the Daytona 500 and the Masters this year. It continues to show the changing, evolving viewer trends and what they're interested in, and that foothold that the NFL has just continues to grow. Here's something, and I didn't even notice this. I noticed the last little note here. Not only did the NFL dominate the top of the list, every single NFL game played in 2014 had more viewers than the most watched World Cup match. I mean, to lap the competition like that really says something. But I'll be very interested come January to look at the top 50 or the top 100 list again for the whole year. I'd like to see where baseball eventually measures in there with the World Series games, where the All-Star game. Well, actually, the All-Star overnight, I can do that myself. Based on the overnights, the All-Star game would not make the top 50 because it looks like it did a 6.8. The lowest rated thing here did a 7.8. Yeah, it looks like the All-Star game would be 51st or 52nd, right around the same area as the Masters. So there you go, kind of in that same area there, just underneath the top 50. So even then, the All-Star game, the mid-season classic, doesn't top the top 50 over horse racing, over the draft is the one that gets me. Man, that thing is growing each and every year. All right, guys, we're going to call it a day. Come back tomorrow and end the week strong. Let's hit it with Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com, Doug Plagans on the schedule, and you. Have some fun tonight watching a whole lot of nothing. Come back tomorrow and get ready for your weekend with the same bat time, same bat channel live, right here on the Sports Fix and the Sports Fix Radio Network. We love you, Cleveland. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cold weather, it ain't nothing pretty. So much hate up in this itty bitty city. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Put your hands up in the air. Everybody say yeah, yeah, yeah.